Unlock divine opportunities, break free from restrictions. Claim your miracles today at 3 a.m. In the heart of the unsuspecting town of Willow Creek, a monumental secret shrouded in whispers and shadows waited for the stroke of 3 a.m. to burst forth like 1,000 firecrackers. The clock ticked toward the mystical hour, promising divine revelations that danced on the edge of human belief. The moon hung low, a cruel eye illuminating the fog-laden streets where desperation and anticipation intertwined like lovers in a tragic embrace. Somewhere, in the dim light of a flickering street lamp, the thump of a heartbeat echoed, like a drum signaling the start of something monumental that sent ripples through the night. An old library with creaking wooden floors sighed in resignation to the weight of forgotten tomes. Here, bound in leather and dust, the legend of an ancient ritual simmered just below the surface, an invitation for the brave or the reckless. They said the walls whispered at night, secrets swirling around like restless spirits begging for release. Staring at the cracked glass of the front door, Jess felt a shiver. It was more than the cold air biting at her skin, it was a warning. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Was that just a shadow, or something more sinister? Time stood still as her heart raced. She wasn't alone. Figures flitted behind her, voices low, the air thick with whispers of warned caution. We shouldn't be here. It's dangerous, but the thrill of discovery pushed back the doubts, igniting a wildfire of curiosity. Adrenaline surged as she stepped inside. The smell of aged paper mixed with something floral and sickly sweet almost made her gag. Dust particles danced in the moonlight, and Jess felt the weight of countless stories pressing down on her. With a trembling hand, she brushed against a shelf, feeling its roughness as if the wood itself was alive, holding its breath in the anticipation of what was to come. She stumbled upon an ancient tome titled, Unlocking the Miracles of the Night. The title sent chills through her, both fear and excitement catching in her throat. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The chill deepened as she opened the book, revealing faded illustrations of candles, symbols, and something that looked like a map of the very town she called home. Everything inside felt explosive, bursting with a vibrant energy that begged her to act. With each page she turned, shadows around her flickered and twisted as if echoing her every move. Images began to swirl around her mind, filling it with impossible temptations, the power to break free from every limitation, to claim the miracles awaiting just within reach. But what price must she pay? Time ticked louder and louder, each second awakening the ghosts of the past, pulling her deeper into the murky depths of the unknown, into a world that promised everything but demanded sacrifice. Just then, a loud bang jolted her to her feet, and she froze, holding her breath, eyes wide. Who was there? What had she awakened? And would she dare go deeper into this web of mysteries, or turn back while she still could? A breath caught in Jess's throat as the echoes of the bang reverberated against the musty walls of the ancient library. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but something deeper rooted her feet to the ground. What if this was the moment she had craved? Beneath the fear, a surge of anger flickered. Who were they to dictate her choices? The room was dim, save for the sliver of moonlight illuminating the tome on the table. The words within seemed to thrumming, pulsing like a heartbeat against the silent library. She glanced over her shoulder, but the dimness concealed any potential threats like a veil. Her heart hammered, but she pushed deeper into the grip of curiosity. The book was right in front of her, unraveling truths that felt as alive as the shadows swirling. Jess let just go. A faint whisper roamed through the air, but it was distant, almost drowned out by her heart racing. Her fingers grazed the cracked spine of the book again, pulling her in. The illustrations shimmered, the symbols danced tantalizingly close to her fingertips. Desperation pooled at the base of her spine like ice water. Candle icons glimmered like stars on the page, shifting as if they were alive, promising warmth and danger alike. What if this was real? What if she could rewrite her destiny? Questions clawed at her thoughts. Were these stories of miracles, or was it the way to something darker? The floor creaked behind her. She spun on her heels, and the shadows morphed, coiling tighter, no longer just figments of her imagination, but a lurking presence closing in. She felt it, the weight of unseen eyes. Adrenaline surged again, this time pushing her toward the door. The thrill of flight tempted her, but the purpose of her curiosity anchored her. Stay strong. The low voice whispered from behind, barely discernible amidst her confusion. The miracle is about to unveil itself. The rich scent of ancient parchment wasn't just an aroma of history, it was electricity coursing through her veins, becoming a conflict of choice and consequence. Another bang echoed, louder this time, shaking the shelves. Books rattled, sending a thin layer of dust cascading to the floor like a shower of stars. Before she could consider the consequences, Jess turned, gripping the book tighter. She had opened a can of worms, and the darkness was rising, hungry for validation. But what of her choice? She felt cruel fingers gripping her insides, twisting her resolve. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice echoing into the vast void of the library. A surge of boldness sliced through her uneasiness, blazing a trail forward. Yet, as stillness enveloped her again, an unearthly quiet fell, casting a spell of dread. Just when she thought the shadows might devour her, the book in her possession began to tremble violently, its pages fluttering as if a fierce wind had infiltrated the room. If the secrets inside could hold the weight of the miraculous, what horrors would they demand in return? The laughter of the shadows twisted in the air, brushing against her skin like a breath carried through the night. Then the tome fell entirely from her grip, landing open on the ground. The swirl of pages settled, drawing her anxious gaze to a bold inscription that glinted in the low light: "Only those who dare claim the night shall wield the power of miracles, and the path to salvation is through sacrifice." A shiver ran down her spine. Did she truly want to venture down this dark, winding path? Below that ominous phrase sat the map. Illumination flickered, revealing even more disturbing markings. Where did these symbols lead? A path to divine liberation or an abyss of despair? The clock neared the fateful hour. Jess felt a pull, a sharp tug to follow the map's lines into the unknown. But will she step further into danger or flee from the shadows' whispering promises? The decision stood before her, and time was running out. The silence was suffocating. Jess hovered over the map, pulse racing, heart thumping like a drum in a void of uncertainty. She could feel it, the undeniable urge to dive deeper, to uncover what lay behind the twisting lines and cryptic symbols. Each shape felt alive, shimmering with a beckoning brilliance that contrasted harshly against her rising fear. With shaky hands, she traced a finger over the path marked on the brittle parchment. The ink felt hot beneath her touch, as if it were feeding off her curiosity, whispering secrets only she could hear. Shadows danced on the edges of her vision, clinging to her like a heavy mist, reminding her of the presence lurking in the gloom. What did she have to sacrifice to unlock the miracles waiting on the other side? Jess. The voice was urgent, panicked. It yanked her attention back as if it were a physical force. "You can't trust it. Step away." It was Eric, his silhouette wavering in the dim light, eyes wide and frantic. "I need to know." She shot back, voice shaking with a mix of defiance and desperation. This could change everything. Eric took a step closer, the shadows swallowing him whole, but Jess could see the fear etched across his face. "Or it could destroy everything. Remember what we came for? That night in the graveyard, the dark forces we unleashed?" Her stomach twisted, a raw knot of conflict gnawing inside her. That night still haunted her dreams, the boisterous conversations turning into whispers of warning. They had stumbled into something ancient, something far too powerful for them to comprehend. Yet here she was, on the brink of another potential disaster. The map pulsed again, almost like a heartbeat synchronized with her own. "You don't understand, Eric," she breathed, glancing back at the book that had fallen to her side. Glimmering symbols from its pages seemed to breathe life into the air, pulling her in. This could mean freedom from the chains binding us. No more hiding. No more running. You need to listen. His desperate call sliced through the burgeoning chaos. You don't know what awaits you down that path. Not every door you open leads to salvation. Sometimes it leads straight to hell. The shadows around her surged, wrapping tighter, teasing the edges of her sanity. A flicker of doubt rooted her heels to the ground. What if Eric was right? But beneath the doubt lay a steady, fierce resolve. She had chased this moment. She would not turn back. Taking a deep breath, Jess stepped closer to the map. "Whatever it is, I'll face it." The words came out, raw and defiant, like a war cry. Suddenly, the library's air thickened, as if something cosmic had shifted. The map vibrated violently beneath her fingers. A sound like rustling wings erupted, echoing through the aisles filled with dusty tomes, sending a shiver up her spine. A low growl reverberated through the shelves as if the very walls were protesting her choice. "Jess! Don't!" Eric's voice bore down on her, a plea infused with dread, but it was too late. The illumination from the map erupted, washing over her in harsh light, competing against the moon's pale glow. Images dashed before her eyes, visions of a grand temple, shadows flickering among towering arches, and an altar shrouded in darkness. Jess's heart climbed into her throat as the map's ink restructured, forming an entirely new route illuminated in shimmering gold. The promise of miraculous opportunity glimmered with unspeakable allure, but the deepening shadows whispered in her ear, warning her of the price, and just when she thought she could decipher the path to her fate, the ground trembled beneath her. A loud crash resounded, followed by a cacophony of shouts from the depths of the library. Unearthly shapes began to form, detached from the darkness. All around her, reality fractured. "Jess!" Eric's scream sliced through the chaos, as terror blossomed in his eyes. What was she truly awakening? In that pivotal moment, Jess felt the weight of her choice pressing down. Was it too late to escape the spiraling darkness? With hearts racing, they both faced the onslaught unfolding before them. Just as it seemed everything might shatter, Jess caught the glimmer of something shining in the chaos, a chance. But as shadowy figures began to break free, she knew, the true test was only just beginning. What awaited them in the dark? The air crackled with energy, a palpable surge that sent jolts through Jess's body. Shapes twisted and screeched from the depths of the shadows, features obscured, movements predatory. The library had transformed from a safe haven of knowledge into a breathing beast, eager for the taste of fear. "Jess! Move!" Eric yelled, urgency inflecting every syllable. His hand shot out, grabbing Jess's wrist, pulling her back. But she resisted. Staring into the chaos, the shimmering gold on the map whispered promises of power and revelation. If she just concentrated. The ground shook violently again, sending books tumbling off the shelves like a rain of forgotten stories. A loud crash echoed as a thick tome slammed shut on its own, the sound resonating like a warning bell. The air was thick with the stench of mildew and something darker, more sinister. The figures emerged further, jagged and twisted, glimpses of eyes like coals glowing in the dark. Their forms shimmered and shifted, as if made of liquid shadow, hungry and insatiable. Jess's breath hitched, panic clawing up her throat. "Listen to me." Eric's voice nearly trembled. "It's just like last time. We don't know what we're dealing with. The map, it binds them somehow." Her pulse pounded in her ears. Was that it? Was the path she sought the key they had carelessly thrown back into darkness? A wild idea crept into her mind. She could wield this chaos, command it. Wasn't that why she'd come this far, before she could answer her heart's call, a dark shape lunged forward, swirling toward them. Eric yanked Jess back, just as something clawed at the air where she had stood, leaving a jagged tear in reality, filled with writhing voids. "Keep your head, Jess." Eric's voice broke through her stunned silence. "You need to face them, but we can't lose ourselves in it." Her resolve hardened as she spotted the map shimmering defiantly amid the chaos. Jess lunged towards it, desperation fueling her. The creatures hissed, their ethereal bodies shifting in tandem, reacting to her movement as if anticipating her next breath. "Get the book!" Eric shouted, his eyes darting between the map and the approaching swarm. "It's connected to this. You need to read the incantations." She reached down, scrambling to grab the book, flipping it open to pages that glowed with pulsating light, the ink shimmering as if it were alive. Lines of ancient text flowed beneath her fingers, revealing words she couldn't fully comprehend but felt deep in her bones a rhythm that thrummed with promise. The shadows hesitated, caught in the gravity of her focus. "Join me!" Jess shouted against the roar of darkness, her voice echoing in the chaos. Her heart raced, but she felt clarity wash over her. "What you seek, I can give you. If you don't resist." A deafening silence enveloped the library, the spectral forms pausing, their glowing eyes narrowing at her. "Jess, what are you doing?" Eric yelled, fear lacing his tone. The air shimmered like heat rising from asphalt. A force pulled at her mind, clawing at her resolve as she channeled every bold thought she had ever had. Could she bring forth light from darkness? Was this the ultimate power that awaited, or the curse ready to devour them? The shadows withdrew slightly, gauging her words, and for a moment, she could feel the delicate tightrope of hope stretching taut, ready to snap. But just as Jess began to comprehend the ancient wisdom, a piercing scream shattered the silence, one that rose from the bowels of despair. It echoed, summoning forth an energy far more chaotic than before, and the shadows moved in, hungry for the fear that was now ripe in the air. "Jess!" Eric's voice pierced through the din, but it was too late. She could feel the very strands of her fate entwining with the map, the ink flowing like blood through her veins. "Step back!" he shouted, but something dark was pulling her in a promise she couldn't resist. What twist of fate awaited them as the shadows surged, claws outstretched, ready to drag her into a chasm she could not escape? The thrill of victory hung in the balance. But the cost might be greater than either of them could imagine. A rush of cold air slammed into Jess, shivering down her spine. It felt like 1,000 hands were gripping her, pulling her toward a depth she couldn't see, a yawning abyss full of whispers and shadows. She clutched the book tighter, its pages pulsing beneath her fingertips, filled with ancient promises and unspeakable danger. "Hold on to me, Jess!" Eric shouted, his voice cutting through the chaotic symphony of nightmarish howls and raucous laughter. But the shadows were everywhere, their clawed limbs grasping, dragging her away from him, weaving a net of darkness that tightened around her like chains. She felt herself teeter at the edge of an all-consuming void, her heartbeat echoing in her ears like a war drum. All she had to do was break free. The power of the map coursed through her, begging her to harness it. She had to become something greater than herself, something that defied the darkness. "Join me!" she screamed again, and the library trembled as if responding to her command. The shadows writhed, their forms flickering uncertainly. For a fleeting moment, the terror in their eyes mirrored her own, but that moment shattered as the piercing scream ripped through the air again, leaving behind a ringing silence that drained the color from the world. It resonated from a corner of the library, something dark pushing and pulling against the air. Eric's features twisted in horror as he started to back away, instinctively shielding himself from the mounting dread. "Jess, let it go!" he pleaded, desperation clawing at him. "It's too dangerous." Yet the book felt alive, as if it had a will of its own. "You have to trust me," it seemed to whisper. "Unlock the true potential." Jess's fear morphed into determination. She flipped through the pages, words glimmering with every frantic sweep of her fingers. Lines of incantation danced across her vision, teasing at her mind, begging to be uttered. It was time to become the conduit. But as the shadows lunged forward, the air thickened with malice. They began to swirl around her in a tempest of darkness, hissing and screeching, a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. Close to panicking, she opened her mouth, letting the words flow. Zorashka Falther. Nixthera Klomp. She shouted, not knowing the meaning but feeling the power course through her. The result was immediate. The shadows recoiled, hissing in pain, parting as if struck by a devastating force. For a heartbeat, Jess felt a surge of triumph. She was bending their fear to her will. The library illuminated, wisps of light crawled from the book, chasing the shadows back toward the dark corners they slithered from, but then a shadowed figure, larger and more monstrous than the rest, emerged with an unnatural roar. Its eyes glowed with a fiery wrath, and Jess could feel a dread deeper than any she'd ever known. Foolish child. It howled, voices overlapping as if 1,000 tormented souls were shouting at once. You think you wield power? You will pay dearly for your insolence. Jess felt the warmth of confidence draining away, replaced by icy dread. Eric's cries faded into the background, muffled by the hollowness that closed in around them. With her heart racing, she realized this was about more than the chaos. It was a test of her very soul, a question that echoed in her mind. Would she fight for control or let the darkness swallow her whole? The monstrous figure lunged, and as it reached for her, she released a final scream. I will not be bound by you. In that critical moment, the library appeared to buckle, the walls warping under the weight of their struggle. Would Jess's cry shatter the darkness or invoke an even more formidable force lurking in the shadows? The answer loomed ahead, as uncertainty thickened the air like a smoke. What awaited her as the shadows converged, ready to claim her for their own? The darkness loomed, but Jess could feel the flickering light inside her straining to break free. Would it be enough? As the monstrous figure barreled towards her, Jess's vision narrowed, her body tightening like a coiled spring. Every heartbeat screamed through the chilling silence. This was it. The moment when she either seized control or succumbed to the darkness. Jess. Eric's voice sliced through the cacophony, desperate and raw. But even his sounds felt distant. All she could focus on was the looming terror before her, a tapestry of shadows threatening to envelop her in their suffocating embrace. Summoning what little courage remained, she grasped the book tighter. A surge of fire erupted through her veins, its warmth battling the suffocating cold of the shadows. She couldn't let fear win. Not now. Loosening her grip on the terror, she focused her thoughts on the glimmering words still swimming in her mind. They became a mantra in the chaos. Zorashka Falther. She shouted again, her voice steadying with every syllable. The shadows shivered, retreating momentarily as if the words were arrows shooting through their smoky forms, but the monstrous shadow slammed a claw into the ground, sending shockwaves through the library. You believe you can harness the light? You do not know the true cost, it roared, a sound that rattled the very foundation of her being. Jess could feel the weight of its malice wrapping around her like a serpent, squeezing. The urge to bolt seized her. Just as despair threatened to take hold, she recalled the flicker of light inside her. A reminder of hope, of strength. She had felt it pulse earlier, it was there, waiting for her to ignite it. You don't own me, she screamed, desperation pouring into her words. In that moment, she visualized herself as the light pushing back, defiant against the overwhelming rage. Words continued to dance on her lips. Nixthera Klomp. She bellowed again, sending energy swirling around her in vivid colors. Wisps of pale light erupted from the book, illuminating her surroundings with a fierce glow. The shadow recoiled again, howling in frustration. Enough! It shrieked, shadows thickening, attempting to funnel its rage into a singular attack. But Jess couldn't let the fear retreat. She thought of Eric, the bond they shared. She thought of the stories they'd read, their dreams of adventures beyond the pages. Be free! She cried, her voice ringing like a bell. Spiraling arcs of light shot out from her as she connected with the power that surged within the book. The energy created a vortex, lifting her feet off the cold library floor. The monstrous shadow writhed, its gargantuan form struggling against the flow of light, bulging eyes reflecting a primal fear. "Stop this madness. You cannot fight what you do not understand." It screeched, its voice laced with urgency. Jess felt an overwhelming rush of energy, a sense of purpose flooding her. She had not just found power, she had found her will to fight back. "I am more than you think," she spat, driving forward with renewed energy. Darkness versus light surged in a chaotic dance, the library vibrating with the clash of opposing forces. Eric watched in horror, helpless yet transfixed as Jess stood defiantly, a beacon against the dark. Would she harness this moment to turn the tide, or would the shadow extinguish her flame? Then suddenly, at the height of her resolve, the ground trembled. An unseen force roared to life beneath her, threatening to swallow her whole. "You think you've won? This is just the beginning." The shadow entity cackled before vanishing into thick black smoke, leaving behind an uncertain calm. A suffocating silence settled over the library, vibrating with anticipation. Jess stood panting, heart racing, light flickering in her hands as she turned to Eric, the gravity of what had just transpired sinking in. "What just happened?" he whispered, eyes wide. Before she could respond, the earth trembled again, and a crack opened in the library floor, revealing an unsettling glow similar to what she had felt before. "Whatever it is, we have to leave," Eric said, fighting a wave of panic that threatened to engulf them both. Jess nodded, but curiosity tugged at her. "Wait!" Jess exclaimed, glancing back at the fissure. "We have to know what's down there. That glow, what if it's a way to finally understand? Was what lay beneath their feet an opportunity or a perilous trap?" The choice hovered before them, waiting for their bold step toward the unknown. Would they take the plunge into the shadows below, or would they run and abandon the mystery lurking beneath? And just as Jess reached toward the glowing abyss, the shadows stirred again. Something was awakening. Fueled by curiosity and a strange sense of destiny, Jess peered into the crack. The glow pulsed, vibrant and beckoning, casting eerie shadows against the walls. It was both beautiful and foreboding. "What if it's a key?" she thought, heart racing. Each beat ignited her desire to discover what lay beneath. Eric's grip tightened on her arm. "Jess, we might not survive whatever comes next. We need a plan." His voice quivered, warning ringing through her senses. But the urgency to understand this new power pulled her forward. "Look at it, Eric. It's glowing like our dreams, like our stories. We can't just leave," she argued, her voice steady, despite the quaking earth beneath them. The shadows slithered back closer, but she wouldn't let fear swallow her. "People don't just dive headfirst into unknown horrors," Eric countered, eyes flickering nervously. "They usually end up on the other side of panic, or worse." With resolve hardening her stance, Jess called out, "I'm not afraid. We have the light, Eric. It can guide us." She felt a pulse of energy in response, almost as if the library itself approved her courage. Just be careful," he murmured, glancing down the fissure, uncertainty clouding his expression. Jess nodded, slipping her hand away from his. She was done waiting. Taking a deep breath, Jess drew on the power within her. "In the name of all that is light," she breathed, and with a push, she leaned into the crack, feeling warmth swirling around her legs as she fell into a glowing void. Unfathomable sensations swept over her, weightlessness intertwined with crackling energy. Eric was close behind, his hand clasped tightly around her wrist, anchoring her in this wild descent. Together, they fell into an iridescent corridor woven of light and shadows, colors swirling around them like threads in an intricate tapestry. As they settled into the bright expanse, Jess was entranced. Yet ahead of them, shadows lurked, whispering secrets and threats. It wasn't mere darkness, there were figures, indistinct yet tactile, waiting just beyond reach. Echoes of laughter and cries mingled in a cacophony that shot shivers down her spine. "Jess! We shouldn't be here. Eric's voice was urgent, but curiosity burned too brightly in Jess's heart to heed the warning. What are they saying? She whispered, stepping forward despite the dread coiling inside her. Flee, girl. Back to the surface, a voice crooned, sounding eerie yet mournful. The price of knowledge is your soul. The shadows flickered with malicious glimmers, eyes bright with unsettling desire. Knowledge, or power? Jess mused aloud, her heart pounding with the thrill of possibilities. No more games, Eric declared, shaking her shoulder. We can't trust anything here. Yet once more, the glimmering shadows pulled at her. She felt an ancestral connection to every story she'd ever read. What if this is where I can really make a difference? She breathed, locked in the sway of destiny. Suddenly, the ground quaked beneath them again, sending ripples of light bursting out. The figures flickered closer, closing in like menacing waves, their intentions unclear. It wasn't just shadows now, it was a storm brewing. The glow intensified, sending pain lancing through Jess's chest as the air thickened. No! This is our chance! Jess shouted, and Eric's fear turned to determination, matching her energy. Fight or flight, Jess. Choose. He shouted. As words tumbled from Jess's lips, she felt a surge of strength, but also the pull of darkness rising. The shadows roared with hunger, their laughter echoing against the bright glow. In that moment, she realized they could summon nightmares or build a new hope. Would she trust the light within? Or let the shadows take their toll? As another powerful tremor surged through the ground beneath them, it became clear, they stood at a precipice, one that could lead them into a new realm of knowledge or obliteration. What would she choose when the darkness called her name? The shadows surged forward, their forms merging and twisting like smoke in a storm. Jess felt the energy crackling around her surge. Was it fear, or was it power? Her heart raced as the whispers clawed at her mind. The price of knowledge is your soul, echoed back, a sinister reminder that every story had its cost. She turned to Eric, desperation sifting through the air like dust. We can't back down now. Jess, think about what we're up against. This isn't just a library anymore, it's alive. His voice quivered, filled with concern. But Jess could already feel the pulse of the room, the shadows dancing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She left Eric behind, plunging into the dancing light. If she could just grasp the source of the glow, maybe she could unlock everything. As she pressed forward, the shadows seemed to part, revealing a staircase winding downward into unfathomable depths. Each step growled at her, almost daring her to take it. With a resolve like iron, she began her descent, adrenaline spiking. Jess, wait! Eric's plea echoed behind her, a tether pulled taut. But nothing could stop her now. This was the moment she longed for since childhood, a chance to dive deep into her dreams. The further she went, the more the air thickened around her, swirling with an energy she couldn't fully comprehend. The whispers grew more coherent, forming words that wrapped around her, promising secrets only the bravest could uncover. Join us, Jess. She stumbled but found her footing again. I am brave. She shouted into the swirling void as if to silence the shadows clamoring for her attention. Suddenly, the staircase opened into a larger chamber, glowing walls pulsating with colors she had never seen. Coiling vines of luminous energy spiraled from the floors, curling around shelves lined with books that seemed to breathe. Jess stepped closer, the titles glimmered faintly, names and places danced in her vision, teasing the edges of her memory. Are you searching for knowledge? Or power? A voice resonated, warm and inviting. Jess turned, startled, to see a figure emerge from the shadows. It was cloaked in shimmering light, face obscured, yet a familiar spark glinted in its eyes. You have chosen to step beyond the known. Are you prepared to face the truth of your desires? Jess knew immediately that this was a pivotal moment. What truth? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The truth of what it means to gain. You seek answers, yet answers come with burdens. The figure took a step closer, revealing itself as an embodiment of everything she ever longed for. What will you sacrifice for the power to change your fate? A chill ripped through her. Jess shared a glance backward. Behind her, Eric teetered at the stairs, eyes wide. Jess. We can leave. We can go back. He pleaded. But the light tangled with the shadows around her, pulling her in deeper. What if I told you, the figure continued, that every choice you make leads to a path you cannot unchoose? The weight of the decision pressed on her chest, each inhalation thicker than the last. Jess felt lost in the storm of consequence. She could finally understand her dreams, but at a cost she couldn't yet fathom. Jess, please. Eric cried out, his voice trembling with fear and desperation. Every choice has power, Jess said slowly, her heart aching. But so does fear. As the figure loomed closer, shadows colored its edges, whispering promises and threats. Jess had to decide, to chase the light or surrender to the dark calling her name. But just as she extended her hand towards the glowing figure, the ground shook violently, and the energy around her surged, darkness closing in. With one moment left to choose, Jess felt everything teeter at the brink. What if, in that split second, she realized the truth was never about the light or the shadows but something deeper? And then it was all chaos. Will they be able to escape the clutches of the shadows, or will they awaken something far worse? The chaos enveloped Jess like a storm, pulsating waves crashing against her senses. Shadows lunged and twisted, their whispers morphing into anguished screams that tore through the air. Everything felt unstable. Reality itself seemed to waver. Panic clawed at her throat. Jess tried to ground herself, to focus on the figure in the light, but the shadows pulled her attention, taunting her with unfinished promises. Just step forward. Embrace the unknown. The voice wrapped around her like a shroud, seductive and dangerous. Jess. Eric's voice was a lifeline, cutting through the confusing blend of light and dark. We can't lose you. Just come back. She turned, her heart thrumming wildly. There was desperation in Eric's eyes, the clear reflection of a bond tethered too tightly to break. She almost stepped back, caught between the lure of the figure and the pull of Eric's reality. Every choice has a consequence. Jess shouted, forcing her voice to hold steady. What if I'm meant to change everything? The figure's demeanor shifted, frustration crackling in the air like static. Do you really believe that? The path you choose will bind you forever. Power binds. It does not free. The room trembled, vines of luminescent energy quaking around her. Each heartbeat drummed a rhythm of urgency, a countdown to something monumental. The atmosphere thickened, a promise of revelation shadowed by dread. No, Jess murmured, her mind racing. I want to believe I can make a difference. But was she chasing power, or was she seeking revenge? Was her desire for change rooted in hope, or was it a longing for escape from her own fears? Your insubordination is noted, the figure hissed, an edge in its tone. Are you prepared for the weight that follows? Yes. Jess shouted, the conviction spilling from her like a surge of renewed courage. I have to know. The air shimmered, the shadows recoiling slightly as if taken aback by her sudden resolve. Jess took a step closer to the brilliant figure, the barriers between her and whatever lay beyond thinning. The temperature dropped dramatically, the glow blazing brighter as if hungry for her energy. A roar of shadows surged forward, a final desperate rush to pull her back into nameless depths. Jess, no. Eric's scream punctured the chaos but was lost amid the storm. Time fractured, splitting wide as Jess plunged forward into the light. Pain flashed through her body as if she were being born anew. The glow wrapped around her, warm and electric, erasing the claws of dread closing in. Just as she felt herself lifted from the fury, the world around her exploded in blinding brilliance, an overwhelming rush of understanding pouring into her mind. Visions flashed, intertwining paths revealing what could be, the weight of choices exploding like wildfire. And suddenly, everything went black. Jess gasped, finding herself once more in darkness, floating amid shadows that whispered sweetly, lulling her into surrender. Flickers of memory slipped through her fingers like water, each one promising a different version of herself. Was she still Jess? Or was she becoming something else, something new spun from the threads of her deepest desires? Join us, Jess. The shadows beckoned, seductive and sly, weaving around her. She took a breath, bracing herself for what came next. Something deep within called her forth, an innate hunger to uncover every buried truth. Yet another alarm bell rang within, warning of what she might lose upon crossing that threshold. What awaited her in this void of uncertainty? Would she emerge with the power to reshape her fate, or would she lose herself entirely in the shadows' alluring grasp? With shadows swirling tantalizingly around her, Jess faced the next crossroads. Would she walk the path of destiny, or would the darkness consume everything she was? The heartbeat of the abyss throbbed loudly, heavy with potential. What awaited her on the other side was nothing short of terrifying. The darkness pressed in closer, like a heavy, damp blanket, shrouding Jess as she hovered in the void. Time warped around her, stretching moments into lifetimes as she felt the weight of her choices crashing against her spirit like waves breaking on a rocky shore. Shadows whispered, their voices merging into a seductive hum that tugged at her resolve. Join us, Jess, they cooed, promising a world of power and freedom, but a spark ignited within her. A memory of laughter, of dreams spun together with Eric, pulled her from the clutches of despair. She had faced the shadows before and survived. This was just another layer of the same fight. If she could harness the light, she could bend the darkness to her will, just as she had begun to in the library. Enough! Jess shouted, her voice echoing defiantly in the silence. I will not be consumed by you. With each word, she felt the energy pulsing in the air around her, warm and inviting. A flicker of light burst forth from the depths of her heart, illuminating the shadows like fireworks in the night. The cries of despair morphed into howls of anger as the shadows recoiled, their form twisting and shifting as if trying to escape the very light she wielded. You understand nothing. Power comes at a price. They hissed, their voices a cacophony of chaos. I understand more than you think, Jess replied, determination blazing in her chest. She was tired of running and hiding, tired of allowing darkness to dictate her fate. I choose to stand and fight. With those simple words, the light around her intensified. It surged through her veins, mingling with the pulse of the universe and infusing her with an energy that felt eternal. She lifted her hands, guiding the light like a conductor orchestrating a symphony. Hear me now, she cried. Let the shadows see the truth. The energy erupted, breaking from her like a tidal wave, cascading through the abyss. The shadows writhed and twisted, their forms flickering as the radiant light pushed them back into the corners of the dark. Jess could see their fear, their desperation, and for the first time, she understood, light and dark were not just opposites, but part of the same cosmos. As the shadows retreated, Jess felt Eric's presence surge beside her, a steady anchor in the storm. I'm here, he shouted, weaving through the flickering darkness to stand firm by her side, their bond reigniting under this powerful reckoning. Together. Jess nodded, the unwavering support of their friendship fortifying her resolve. In that moment, they crafted a bubble of light that expanded, swallowing the shadows who had whispered and taunted them for so long. The darkness trembled, shrank, quaked under the brilliance. They were breaking free. Let us go, Jess cried, summoning every ounce of strength she had left. We will not be bound by fear. The shadowy entities surged forward again, racing toward them with raw desperation. But Jess felt a shift as if the universe itself rallied behind her. Almost instinctively, she channeled the warmth of their memories, the laughter, the stories shared beneath starlit skies, their adventures held together by hope. The brilliance exploded in a blinding flash, enveloping them in a kaleidoscope of light. The swirling colors danced and flickered, merging light and dark in a dazzling display. Jess and Eric held onto each other tighter, pulsing with energy that created a wave of warmth between them. No longer were they mere mortals, together, they became the harbingers of balance. As the last remnants of the shadows were dispelled into nothingness, Jess felt a calm wash over her, like a sunrise after a long night. She took in her surroundings, the once threatening darkness now just a distant memory. What once seemed terrifying had revealed itself to be fundamental, a reminder that every choice and action carried weight, and with that weight came potential. Jess found herself back in the familiar library, the air now bright and serene. The shelves stood untouched, the ancient tomes gleaming, waiting patiently. Eric turned toward her, eyes wide with disbelief and relief. Did we really do that? Yeah, we did. Jess beamed, breathless. But it's not just about defeating something dark, Eric. It's about understanding there's light within us all. We have to balance our desires and fears. He smiled, the weight of uncertainty lifting. Together, we can face anything. With a firm resolve, they stepped into the early morning glow. Willow Creek awoke around them, unaware of the battle just fought in its quiet library. Birds chirped, the air was fresh, and the world hummed with promising possibilities. What happens now? Eric asked as they walked side by side, feeling the warmth of the morning sun on their skin. Jess paused, glancing back one last time at the library, now alive with stories yet to unfold. Now we write our own. No more hiding. No more fear. They took a deep breath, embarking on a new journey, the shadows behind them but never forgotten. Filled with hope and understanding, they were ready and eager for whatever awaited, and as the sun climbed higher, Jess knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. So, if you love this adventure and want to dive into more amazing stories, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and I want to point out, your comments mean the world. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Jess's journey and what she'll do next. Thank you, friends, for being a part of this incredible adventure.